Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the World Class Mentors. This is Tony Kaufman, and we are celebrating some incredible folks this morning. We're also going into the future with what's happening with the campaigns and all the fun stuff having to do with politics. But more important than that, the World Class Mentors is a radio show and podcast celebration of people who have truly achieved world class status through sharing their stories and honoring their mentors. This morning we have an incredible guest. Good morning, Donna. How are you? Donna
Good,
Ross.
good morning, Tony. How are you this morning?
Fine, thank you. You're sitting in Houston about to get ready to have some fabulous good times in the next what is it, 30 days, 60 days?
Actually, I think we're 72 days from the start of early voting here in Harris County, but who's counting? Who's counting?
Listen, everyone, I met Donna last week, and I have to tell you, she totally took my heart. Donna is the
Thank
very
you.
first high school graduate and the very first college graduate of your entire family. You want to give me a little background on that?
Sure, Tony, I'd love to. As I explained, my grandparents came to the United States through Ellis Island, my mother's family from Italy, and my father's family from Ireland. And so they were new immigrants here to the United States. And, my parents didn't have the ability to finish school. In fact, my dad had a third grade education, and my mom had a fifth grade education. So completing high school was a big deal for my parents, and so when I graduated from high school, like I mentioned the other day, it was the most proud day my parents had had. I mean, they were just absolutely thrilled at that point in time to be able to say that I had graduated from high school. And I am the oldest of 18 grandchildren, and I was the first to complete high school. But things were tough. My dad worked in an auto body shop, and my mom was a manicurist. And so, when I graduated high school, I went off to work. I grew up in New York, so the logical place for me to work was Manhattan, and that's where I went off to. And so, for 6 years, I worked as a secretary, always knowing that I wanted to be a lawyer, but perhaps it just wasn't meant to be. So during those 6 years, I saved my money. I worked in the HR department at the company, and eventually I was like, you know what? The difference between those folks and me, the ones that are walking around with JD degrees, the ones that have college degrees, is the education, and I could do it. So I think I told you I went home. I said, guess what I did today? And I told my dad that I had quit my job and enrolled in community college. Needless to say, he was a little taken back. My mother was over the moon. So I began community college. I finished in a year and a half because I discovered that the faster you finish, the less money it costs. And so finished in a year and a half, went back to work for another year before I could afford to go back to a four-year school, finished my four-year education in a year and a half, having done a year and a half at community, a year and a half at the university, and then took another year off to save some money and then started law school at night. During my law school, my first year of law school, actually, I met a Swiss guy from Switzerland, moved down to Houston because that's where his transfer from Zurich was, and began attending school full-time down here. So in 1987, when I graduated from law school, as you can imagine, both my parents were incredibly proud of me. And as you mentioned, I am still the only one of the 18 who has a postgraduate degree. There are some who have attended college. I think there's four or five of my cousins who actually have completed college and have a college degree, but I am still the only one of 18 who has a postgraduate degree. So that's my story
I
on
love that
education.
story, Donna. It's
Thank
your
you, Tony.
drive and your motivation and your commitments. I mean, so many. I've heard so many excuses for not going to college. and so many reasons that people can't finish. And I'm sitting here listening to you working 3 jobs, just to start your college and then go back to work and then save enough tuition. I mean, you are so incredibly motivated. That's just, that's the level of commitment that you had towards that. Is there something that you would recommend now for young people thinking of, I can't go to college or that kind of thing? 'Cause you just surpassed all odds.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Yeah, I do. Yes, I do have something. Do not be afraid of community college. Community college is as most people know, 2-year program. I mean, here we have Houston Community College. It allows you to get your basics out of the way. It allows you to dip your foot into what it is you really want to do, and it allows you to do it at a reasonable cost. And I've always said, if you treat college like a full-time job, okay, you can do it. Having worked full-time, you learn to get up. I mean, I took the train into Manhattan every day, so you would get up between 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. You'd be on the train into the city. You start working at 8:30, 9 o'clock. You work 9 to 5, and then you commute home, getting home sometime between 6:30 and 7 o'clock. If you treat college in the same manner that you treat a job, you get up in the morning, you shower, you get dressed, you study for the hours that you would be working, and then, you wind down at the end of the night. It is just so much easier to do.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Not only that, congratulations on graduating in the top 10% of your class. I mean, that just says so much. And, the one theme that you've got, Donna, throughout your past and your present is that you are in the moment. You are always here. And even though you were a woman at a time when women weren't really in the front of the courthouse. I mean, Ally McBeal wasn't out yet, I mean, you had to go through a variety of challenges.
I wanted to do. I wanted to do litigation, and I wanted to be in the courtroom, and I wanted to help people. I wanted to make a difference. And so having graduated in the top 10% of my class, one would think that I would have a host of job offers. In fact, it was just the opposite. I mean, I interviewed with probably 10 of the top firms here and did not receive a single offer. I was, in fact, hired by a small plaintiff's personal injury firm, Thurlow and Associates, and began my career there. And Tom Thurlow, although an older gentleman who had worked on his own most, gave me the opportunity that the large firms would not. And although in the beginning I somewhat resented it because it was, here's your first file, Donna, good luck, it's set for trial next week. And there I was, just barely having passed the bar, and sitting in a courtroom getting ready to try my first case. It was the most important thing that I think has affected my future because it was sink or swim, and I decided to swim. And so for the 8 years that I was with Tom's firm, which it was one trial after the other. It was one opportunity after the other that he gave to me. And so I will be forever grateful for that opportunity. And after 5 years with the firm, I made partner there, and then stayed for another 3 years, and then made the decision to go out on my own and start my own firm in January of 1995. But I mentioned this earlier, I literally stood on the shoulders of the very few women who came before me as far as being a plaintiff's personal injury attorney. And so I am very grateful for those women who came before me, those I knew and those I never knew, because without them, Lord knows if I would have been accepted into law school. I mean, I was one of maybe 10 in a class of 50, if that many. And those women trailblazed for me the way I try every day to trailblaze for the women who are coming behind me.
That's exactly how I think I see you. And what's funny is you just went right into the second phase of our show, is who are your mentors? And we usually, I have a little phrase called "we dance with the one who brung us." And of course, you've mentioned Tom, and then you've mentioned women. I think back when you were in college, and maybe even a little bit after, I remember the wonderful Barbara Jordan, and how I was just spellbound when I would hear her speak. So I mean, you're absolutely right.
Amazing woman. Since our conversation last week, Tony, if I could just jump in, I have been thinking a lot about the women who came before me, and there is one person I want to mention. Her name is Alice Oliver Parrott. She is was a plaintiff's lawyer who began maybe 10, 15 years before I did. And it wasn't until many years later that I actually met Alice, but Alice was a great, great trial lawyer who eventually took the bench and became a judge, and eventually sat on the Court of Appeals. So she was initially in a trial bench and then went to the Court of Appeals. And I remember my whole, the youthful part of my career, watching her career and thinking, wow, what a spectacular, wow, and never really actually getting to meet her until maybe 15 years ago when I first met Alice, and telling her that, I followed your career, I watched the things you did, I paid attention. In fact, there were times where you were in the courtroom and I was sitting in the back just watching, just picking up the things that you were doing, listening to how you spoke to a jury, or when you were a judge practicing in front of you. And so I think Alice made a big difference. And I have mentioned to her that she was a mentor without being a mentor, that she, just by being who she was a continuous inspiration to me.
Sounds perfect. That's exactly who we were looking for, and I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you so much. Now, we've talked a little bit about your past. We've talked about who you are now, and I have got to ask the $100,000 question. You are running for judge of the 295th Civil District Court. I'm super excited about that, Donna. Can you tell us what motivated you to run for judge?
Maybe in my subconscious it was Alice. Maybe I just wanted it to be just like Alice. I love the law, Tony. And in my profession, in my career, I have been very, very fortunate to help many people who have been my clients and who I have had the opportunity to make a difference in their lives. And that has always been a big goal of mine, is to do what I can for as many as I can. And in that quest, I have been very successful in my career. And a lot of hard work and a little luck. And I have been, I am very appreciative of where I am and what I have. And so now for me, it's time to give back. If it is, I have practiced for 30 years. And I want to move to a bigger field of public service. And so my knowledge, my experience, my temperament, in my opinion, suit me very, very well for the bench, and would like to take that experience and that temperament and maybe help a larger number of people here in Harris County. So that's why I decided to run for judge.
We had a conversation not too long ago about volunteering and how you're paying it forward. in terms of what projects and things you've been involved with, your volunteerism. Would you like to discuss a little bit about that?
I'm happy to, because too, Tony, I think part of being a judge is also not only the part you do in the courtroom, but also the part you do in the community. I mean, being out there, giving back, and helping others. And that's always been a big thing that I've worked here at my firm. And so one of the things that, I've done is I started the Women's Caucus group within the Houston Trial Lawyers Association. We only make up less than 10% of the or a little more than 10% of the membership when we developed the Women's Caucus, and because trial lawyers are traditionally men, and so we got together. And we formed the caucus. We amended the bylaws of the organization to allow for the caucus. And now we meet once a month, and we support each other and work and encourage each other so that we can succeed in the courtroom. Just this past month, our luncheon, we had 3 of our young advocates, and they were between, I would say, the ages of 30 and 35, and we got to listen to these 3 young advocates tell us about their successful trials that had occurred in the last 2 or 3 months. And I was like, this may be the very first time I'm listening to war stories and 3 women are telling the stories. I was almost in tears. I was so excited. Another thing we do is my firm has adopted a class at JFK Elementary where we mentor 4th graders. We travel out there once a week, usually on Wednesdays, and we spend about an hour and a half with the class, kind of just doing whatever they want to talk about, kind of just letting them know that there are people out there who really care whether they make it through school or not. And so these are some of the ways to stay in school and how important it is to stay in school. And so to maybe kind of get some future lawyers involved, I wrote a trial. It's a story about we call it the case of the missing cookies. And basically it involves 2 teachers and a plate of missing cookies, and we need to have a trial to determine who ate the cookies. And so we spent time with them, rehearsing their roles, practicing where to stand. I mean, we have a PowerPoint presentation where we show them the courtroom, where the jury is, where the lawyers sit, where the judge sits. We spent, actually, this is so fun, we spent 2 classes with them on what to wear for trial, and they just love that part of it for some reason. It's really kind of funny, and some of them will take pictures of their outfit. Is this good, Ms. Roth? Is this good, Ms. Roth? Or they'll bring it in. And for those who can't afford clothes for the courtroom, of course we have a volunteer fund, and we're able to purchase anything that's needed. And then after they've learned their roles, on the day of trial, we all get into the school bus and we go down to the Harris County Civil Courthouse, and one of our judges volunteers to actually have them try the case of the missing cookie. So we put a jury of students in the box, and we let them try their case. We get a jury verdict, and one of the teachers is always guilty of having eaten the cookies. So something I really enjoy doing.
I love this.
Yeah,
that is so much fun.
It allows them to know that there's more to a courtroom than just a criminal proceeding, that being a lawyer could actually be in their future, We even have a little sheriff's uniform that we put on for the bailiff. We have a student bailiff. And so, in their fourth grade, so they're like 10, 11 years old, and it's the perfect age for them to really get acclimated to this. So it's something I've enjoyed doing. I mean, I could go on and on, Tony. I mean, 5, 6 years ago, I served as chair of the Trial Lawyer Foundation, and we did a gala benefit for the benefit of Shriners Children's Hospital. We raised $75,000 and gave a check to Shriners. So these are things that are really important to me because giving back is really important.
And that leads us into our next, and I'm just enjoying the journey so much, Donna. I can't even tell you. And folks,
thank you,
I know we haven't talked about it in just a little bit, but this is Donna Roth, and she is the candidate for the 295th Civil District Court in Houston, Texas, Harris County. You know what we haven't mentioned is your family business.
My family business. I started practicing at my own firm in 1994. My daughter actually went to law school. She graduated from my alma mater, South Texas College of Law, and I'm going to wait. She's out 4 years, so she graduated in 2014 and had several offers from many of the firms in the city, and made the decision to join our firm. And so I was very, very pleased. And I tell everybody, it's very important that a judge have judicial temperament, that you have the ability to be patient and to listen and to treat everybody with dignity and respect. And so I say, and I have the perfect experience for that. I work full-time with my child. And if you can work full-time with your daughter, you have patience. So I laugh and tell everyone that. And then, of course, 5 years ago, we opened up an office in Seattle, Washington. And my nephew, who's also a lawyer, went up to Seattle and opened that for us. So I do work with both my daughter and my nephew. So I feel like I'm pretty fortunate in that respect.
Leading the way. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Donna, in all your years of experience, you mentioned a couple of cases that kind of made sense on everything you've done. And I really believe in the paying it forward and the leaving a legacy. Can you talk a little bit about what legacy you're going to leave?
Very early on in my career, still when I was with Tom, we handled a case where a young boy had been shot and killed in a fast food restaurant during a robbery. A young African-American boy. He was about 12 years old at the time. And we took on that case and proceeded through litigation with that case. And, I remember very distinctly the defendants not taking the case all that seriously because it was a young African-American boy whose mother was a mess. I mean, she was, a drug addict and just could not get her stuff together. And I always remember them going, what's the value of that? There's no value in the case. What do you expect to get? And I remember the moment when they first said that, and I was like, are you kidding me? That someday a young black man is going to be president of the United States, and this was long before 2008. And this boy could be that boy, that man, if it weren't for the fact that you took away that chance. And we were on the courthouse steps before I finally got that message through to the other side, and that case was settled for the reasonable compensation that it should have been settled for reimbursement of the damages that family had suffered. And that money, we were able to structure that money and change that woman's life. I was able to get her into a program. I was able to have her become a useful member of society. I mean, she got a job. This was a woman that never needed to work at that point, but wanted to and did get a job. And because of the way this turned her life around, her younger children, okay, were much better for it. She was much better for it. We made her a productive citizen of our county. And
thank you so much, Donna. Yeah, just thank you so much, everyone. This has been Donna Roth, and I just can't tell you how much in love we are with her at this moment, and really support her efforts. This has been the World Class Mentors, and by the way, it's sponsored by KDDM Inc., a world-class digital marketing agency and image maker for speakers, authors, coaches, and healers. Donna, we want to thank you. We send you a virtual hug. And
thank you, Tony.
Good luck
thank
on your
you
race.
So much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please, everybody, let's make sure we vote. Election Day is November 6th.